When we think about your business plan and how we want to set the pace for your business, we often end up thinking, well, we need more leads. And that may be the case or not. Let's start out by talking about the importance of leads as a whole to your business. So I like to think of my business as like a set of gears, each representing a different function or department of the business. The one depicted here could represent a typical company that markets and sells to homeowners. So think of if you could walk up to your building and like you were the jolly green giant, you could rip the top of the roof off of the building. And this would be a representation of what you would see. This would be a representation of the functions of the business. So you'll see that there's a marketing or business development function, an appointment center function, a sales or estimating function. These are the closers. These are the people that get the yes. There's also a production or installation or operations function. And then there's some other supporting gears as well, like business support, HR, IT, and accounting. Each one of these gears that represents a function in the business has an input, a function, an output, a manager, and KPIs. Let's go through and talk about how each of these gears work. The marketing or business development gear is at the very top of the machine. So this is what we sometimes call the rainmakers. These are the people who, this is the function that brings the leads in. So as a business owner, what we do is in the top of the machine, we make an investment in our business. And this investment is in the form of our marketing budget or our marketing dollars or our business development costs. But it's an investment that we make in the top of our business machine. And what ends up happening is the marketing or business development function of the business takes those investment dollars and they turn them into leads. That's their function. So what they get as their input is the dollars invested in marketing or business development budget. And their function is to take that money, that budget, and to turn it into leads or opportunities. So therefore their output, what they're developing is if they were their own little factory, their output is leads. So how do we make sure that they are operating well? How do we make sure that this function is functioning well? Well, with KPIs. In this particular case, it might be the number of leads that they have generated and the cost per lead. I like cost per lead because it gives an indication of how efficient the gear is being with the investment dollars, not just by number of leads produced, but actually by using that investment money well, efficiently. So it's an efficiency function or efficiency KPI for the marketing function. So the marketing or business development function takes that money and it produces leads. And then the leads go on to the next gear. And this is our appointment center gear or our appointment center function. This often isn't represented as a separate department in a business. This is often more of again, a function of it. It could be a few different people in the office who don't just answer phones and set appointments for estimate appointments, but they do other things as well. Maybe they do some bookkeeping, maybe they do some production scheduling and other things. And sometimes there are people who are dedicated just to appointment center and booking these leads into an appointment. So the leads go on to this function. And what ends up happening is they do their thing. They use their tools, their skills, and they take that input, those leads, and they do their job of converting these leads into set and retained appointments. These are appointments for our estimator or our closer or our salesman, whatever we call them, to go to the home and meet with the homeowner. So that's their function, is to take those opportunities, convert them into appointments. So therefore their output is, of course, appointments. And how do we know if this function is doing well? Well, we know they're doing well because we're gonna measure conversion percent. We're going to measure based on the number of leads they received in, the number of leads, the appointments they set from them, and calculate that conversion. Another KPI we may use in that department is number of appointments as well. So we use conversion percentage as their efficiency KPI. So no pressure, marketing and appointment center, but it's really, really important that these functions are done well, because these appointments are the opportunities that we have to make sales. And these, especially the first gear, but certainly the second as well, set the pace for the rest of the machine. So making sure that we're efficient with our marketing dollars and converting them well into leads, and making sure we're efficient with converting those leads into appointments is really, really important. So sometimes in a business, we'll just talk about lead conversion, and we always are thinking of, okay, well, the percentage sold, and that's not the only place that we can lose leads. We can lose leads by not setting them into appointments. We can lose leads by not retaining them when they need to reschedule or cancel. So we don't just lose them by not making the sale when they're in the home, but there's some other ways that we can, along a lead's journey with us, where we can lose them. So let's talk about that. I like to think of this as, remember that exercise we used to do in school? We used to trick us into doing math, where there would be, 5 kids on the bus, and then the bus stops, and 3 kids get on, and 2 kids get off, and then the bus stops, and then 4 kids get on, and 1 gets off. How many are left on the bus? Well, we're gonna do that exercise right here, but we're gonna do it with leads. And we're first gonna talk about, we're gonna have 100 leads on our bus. So the bus is moving on down the road, and it gets to the first bus stop. And the first bus stop represents when we set the lead to an appointment. So we have our school bus with our 100 leads, and we get to our first bus stop, and 15 kids get off the bus. 15 leads get off the bus. Why did 15 leads get off the bus? Well, in this particular case, 15 leads got off the bus at this bus stop because this represents the 15 leads that we never set to an appointment. We just didn't. We either could never get a hold of them, maybe even didn't try, maybe somehow got lost and fell through the cracks. But for whatever reason, of the 100 leads that our marketing department developed for us and got, 15 of them we never even set to an appointment. Okay, all right, so we lost 15 leads. Okay. Well, we continue on down the road. So we're going to continue on down the road to the next bus stop, and the bus stops, and 12 leads got off the bus. Well, why did these 12 get off the bus? Well, because somewhere, although we had 85 leads set to an appointment, we had 85 appointments set. Somewhere between the time that we set the appointment and we went there, 12 of them canceled. 12 of them just, for whatever reason, things happen, soccer practice and doctor's appointments and just things happen in life, and they canceled, and we never rescheduled them. So we lost 12 more. Okay, well, we still have 73. So, okay. We're going to continue down the road with our 73 appointments. So we started out with 100 leads, but we ended up with 73 appointments. Okay, cool. So we get to our 73 appointments, and then we get to the next bus stop, and 8 leads got off the bus. Why did 8 leads get off the bus now? Well, even though we went to the appointment, 8 leads got off the bus because that represents the 8 leads where we never gave them a quote or a proposal or an estimate. We never even gave them an opportunity to buy from us. For whatever reason, maybe there was just not work there that we could do, or maybe our closer got behind on his paperwork and never got around to giving a quote. For whatever reason, though, eight of them we lost because even though we went out there and we were face to face with them, we never gave them an opportunity to buy. Okay, all right. So we keep going down the road with our 65 quotes, estimates, proposals, whatever terminology you use. And we ended up at the next bus stop with 42 of those getting off, which resulted in having 23 sold leads from the original 100. 23. Okay. You know, it's funny. Normally when we talk about closing percent, we're only ever talking about that last bus stop. So funny. When you ask the closers to measure their closing, they're only gonna measure that last bus stop. When in fact, from a business owner standpoint, we want to measure all the way from the front of the bus route, because you see the 100 leads from a business owner standpoint, that's what we paid for. That's what we bought. That's what we generated through our budget, through our efforts and the budget that we used. We generated 100. So that's where I want to measure from, because that's the amount of opportunity that we had. So overall, we ended up with a 23% conversion rate from the time that we got the lead all the way to sold. If you take into account all of the places where leads can fall out of the bus route, where they can get off the bus, we end up with 23%. And I don't know anyone that for a conversion rate would be happy with 23%. But I think what bothers me more than that is the very front part of the bus route, the first two stops. Because you see, the first two stops represents things that are done in the office, things that are done by the first two gears, the marketing and the appointment setting gear. You see, these are the places where we lose leads before we even got an opportunity to present to them. So these are to me, these are a waste. And this is the place that we can work really, really hard to make sure we optimize our conversion there. In this case, we lost 27 of our 100 leads before we even got a chance to sell to them. Before we even got a chance to sell to them. That stings a little bit, doesn't it? But wait, there's more, because you see, those 27 leads also cost us money. You see, we paid for those. We paid for those in our marketing budget and our business development time and our marketing manager's salary and the amount of money we spent on advertising or SEO costs and all of the things that we do that make up the amount that we spent in our marketing budget. You see, we paid for those 27 leads. And if we pay, let's say $200 per lead, on average, that's just on average across the board, what's what we spend on our leads, let's say, and you should know your number, by the way, on average, how much you pay per lead. So if let's say we pay $200 per lead, that 27 leads represents $5,400 that we lost out of our marketing budget. So we wasted $5,400 out of our marketing budget just by not converting those leads and getting them, and getting in front of that homeowner for the opportunity to sell to them. But like they say in infomercials, but wait, there's more, because you see, it's not just about the cost of the lead, it's also about the value of the lead. You see, the value of the lead is much, much different. The value of the lead is represented by your average dollars per appointment. So if you were to set 100 appointments and get your closer, your salesman in front of those homeowners, and let's say they closed 40% of them at an average sale of $7,500, that represents $300,000 worth of sales, or $300 per appointment run. And this is for all appointments run, whether they sold or not. And the reason why we want to calculate this is because we want to know the value of these leads, the value of that appointment, the value of getting someone in front of getting a salesman in front of these leads. This is the value of the lead. It's like their potential. It's the value. So when we're talking about the value of these leads, well, it's a lot more than $5,400. Actually, it's $81,000. These 27 leads that we lost prior to having the opportunity to even sell to this customer represents $81,000 in potential revenue. And I think what hurts even more is even though we didn't get the $81,000 in potential revenue, we still paid the $5,400 in cost. Okay. Let's break some of these bus stops down and see what we can do about this. Okay. So the first one, lead to appointment set. So if marketing provided 100 leads and the lead conversion function set appointments for 90 of them, then there's a 90% lead to set conversion. So what do you want it to be? Well, generally we want it to be 92% or higher is considered really good. Anywhere in the 90s, I would be happy with in most industries. But you need to be aware that the expectations for this KPI can fluctuate based on the source of the lead. So we all know that web leads or leads that call in, well, you should convert those at 100% because you have them on the phone. And maybe your leads that come from SEO, from your contact page, where they can fill in their information on your website, maybe they convert pretty well. Maybe they convert at 95%. But we all know that when we go to home shows or something like this, where we're pushing out to them more than they're coming to us, they're going to convert lower. We know that. It's just a reality of the different kinds of marketing that we do. So be aware of that and understand where your lead sources are so that you can have a good expectation of what the conversion should be for different lead sources. So the things that can contribute to this particular bus stop, the first one, having a lower conversion, is of course the lead source, just like we talked about. It's also the wait time for an appointment being too long. If a customer calls and they want to have someone come out and give them a free estimate, if they have to wait a month, they're probably going to be unlikely to set an appointment. But if you can get there later this week or next week, then that's going to reduce the amount of times that they're going to have a pushback because the appointment was so long. So be aware of how long your customers have to wait in order to see you. Another factor that contributes to this conversion point being lower is a slow response from us. So this is especially has to do with the ones where like they have filled out the form on your website off hours and then getting a response from you, or filled it out at all and getting a response from you. So if you take too long, the customer may have already set an appointment with someone else. So that would contribute to that having a lower conversion. By the way, during office hours, if they fill out a web inquiry, you should get it immediately, and the game should be you should call them back so fast they'll say something like, "Oh my goodness, I just filled that out. I'm still on the page." That's what you want to be. You want to have that kind of fast response because it's the first impression of your customer service that you provide. And if you're fast with your response back to them, that sets a great first impression. Another factor that contributes to this conversion point being lower is not setting the appointment when you're on the call. And it may be because you've lost control of the call, you've gone off script, or you've allowed the customer to wander away from the call for a reason. Or in some cases, maybe you don't even have that as part of the function. Maybe That's not something that you do, is you don't set the appointment right then. You have a salesman call them back, and I would reevaluate that system. I think that if you want to capitalize on your leads and you want to get the most out of your leads, you need to have someone whose job it is to set these appointments. Have someone operating within this function of the appointment center, meaning they they think about this, they work on this, they handle setting these appointments. So the second conversion point, the second bus stop, was appointment set to run. So if the appointment, so this is like factoring in for cancellations is what we're doing here. So this is like an inverse cancellation rate, but it's about measuring retainage of appointments that they did not cancel. So what should it be? Well, if I like 94% or more, I like yeah, 95 was great. Anywhere in the 90s, you're doing pretty good. Some of the factors that contribute to this particular bus stop being lower is the wait time for the appointment is too long. They may set the appointment, but maybe they call you back in a couple of days because they found someone that can get to them sooner. So if your wait time for your appointment is too long, you probably will get higher cancellation rates of appointments. Another factor that contributes to this conversion being lower than it should be is accepting cancellations without trying to reschedule them, without trying to save them. So have scripts for handling when people want to cancel appointments, because sometimes they don't want to cancel them as much as they want to reschedule them. Things came up, something came up in their life and they can't make that time. And they're like, oh yeah, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to. Do we try to save that appointment by rescheduling it? And even if we can't reschedule it right then, do we make a follow-up with them so that we can get it rescheduled? Or do we just say, okay, call me back when it works for you? Because that's just not going to happen. Another factor that contributes to this conversion being lower is no lead recycling efforts. I love lead recycling. And lead recycling means taking those leads that we didn't set, all the ones that got off on bus stops prior to us getting in front of the homeowner, and calling them and having a plan and having a way that we call them. Oh, we recall all the ones that have canceled in the last X number of weeks. We recall all the ones that we never set to an appointment. Here's a frequency that we do it. And once we've called them and they haven't answered, we text and we email and we send snail mail and we do whatever we need to do. And here is the program that we use, or the process that we use, to make sure we stay in front of all of those leads that got off the bus so we can get them back on the bus. That's recycling, especially when it comes to cancels. Cancels, they wanted to, something came up and we need to stay in front of that. So these first two bus stops are things that happen within the appointment center. This is their realm. And I like to put these together, these two first conversion points that both happen in the appointment center, and I like to put them together as one number. So if you started out with 100 leads and you set 90 of them to appointment, yes, your first bus stop is 90%, but then 5 cancel, so 85 were actually run, then that particular bus stops was 94%, but we want to put these together and we want to see the entire appointment center's lead conversion as one number. And in this case, it would be 85%. I use this number as a quick measurement. Generally, I want this to be over 90. And the reason why is it's a quick measurement all the time. Whoever's in charge of this KPI should know what their number is. And it's one number. They don't have to give you a list or a spreadsheet or anything. It's a matter of what's your lead conversion this week. And they should know it. The person in charge of making sure that this is good should know what it is. If you're under 90% or you're under your goal, then you can dig into the 2 different conversion points and see where the opportunity is. But for me, because I would put, someone in charge of this KPI and give them a goal of 90, if they're telling me, hey, you're 92, great. Good job, keep going. And I would move on to something else that needs my attention. So often when we talk about lead conversions, we end up with a question of, well, what is considered a lead? So let's talk about that really quickly. My definition of a lead is based on the info we obtain during the incoming phone call. And as long as it's within our coverage area, we do the work, meaning what we are able to talk to them about on the phone and they describe to us, we do that work and it's in our area. Pretty simple. What is considered an appointment run? Because we'll get that too. We want to define what these are so we can measure consistently. So what's considered an appointment run? Well, in my mind, the simple definition is if your salesman knocks on the door, the appointment's run. That's that. It's considered run. Of course, then it becomes a question of, does someone answer? And that's up to you. But you need to define it in your business so that you can measure this stuff consistently, to make sure that your own numbers are good and they're comparable. So in the appointment center, the lead conversion that we're talking about, where the whole point is we're trying to keep these leads on the bus, right? We're trying to keep the kids on the bus. We need to measure the incoming leads, the canceled appointments, and the appointments run. All of this stuff can probably be found pretty easily in your CRM. And you can often make, in most CRMs, there's a report, there's a dashboard, there's a list box, depending on your CRM, there is something that probably already does this for you. It's just a matter of looking at it and using it to then get better in the department. So as you start measuring these things and getting them visual and talking about it and making it better, I want you to also be aware that you may have some unscheduled bus stops in your business. Because you see, one of the most typical unscheduled bus stops where leads tend to get off the bus is actually the first bus stop, which isn't, it would be an additional first bus stop. So in some businesses, the way things are done in the office is we don't even put the lead in the CRM until we have set the appointment, which means you are actually getting far more leads than you think you are because they're not being recorded until they're set to an appointment. And what this looks like is when you come back from a home show and you end up with, 40, 50 leads, whatever you got from your home show, and on someone's desk is a series of papers or Post-it notes or something else of all the people they're calling back because that's their system. I assure you, there's going to be a percentage of those pieces of paper or Post-it notes that never end up in your CRM because they never get set to an appointment and you lost them and you didn't even know that you did. So look for unscheduled bus stops where leads fall off. Well, they get off the bus. Where leads fall off your bus, look for those places. Look for all those spots where leads that we have paid for and generated are not being captured or they're not being converted. And how do you do this? The best way to do it? Well, the way we talk about anything in business, if you want something to get better, you focus on it, right? Well, I would designate someone in charge of optimizing the lead conversions in those first 2 bus stops. So in the office ones, the first 2 bus stops, designate someone who measures it and who has the goal for the conversion percentage that you want, and they're given the tools and the training to do that. Speaking of the tools and the training to do that, I have available a lead conversion guide to help uncover some of the opportunities to convert more leads. Some of the places when the reasons why leads get off the bus at the different bus stops. So I have this lead conversion guide available. And it is written in such a way that you can work with the person in your office that you want to focus on converting these leads better in the office. But inevitably, every time I talk about lead conversions, people will say, yeah, but what about the second half of the bus route? Well, let's talk briefly about the second half, because you see, that's a much bigger discussion than we're going to talk about today. But let's touch on those two. These tend to be sales department or closer or salesman conversions. These both are areas that represent the part in the process where you are in the home, in front of the homeowner. So the first bus stop in that section is appointment to quote. So if you had 100 appointments run and your salesman wrote quotes, estimates, proposals, whatever you call them, for 89 of them, then the quote percentage would be 89%. Generally, I think it should be 90%, 95% is higher would be good. That's going to vary a little bit based on how the questions and the scripting that you use in the office for setting leads. I tend to like to err to the side of sending a salesman if I think there's an opportunity there. And so because I err to the side, I don't super qualify leads, I can end up with a quote percentage that's more like 95. But if you qualify hard in the office, you may get 100% quote rate, but inevitably you will lose opportunity over that, because we all know that in the office, when you're talking to a homeowner on the phone, you don't always get a great picture and you could lose opportunity doing that. It's a business decision that you make. But generally, I think that if you're quoting under 95%, it's certainly something that you need to look at and figure out where you could optimize that. And again, the expectation for this is also going to fluctuate based on the source of the lead, how you qualify, if you qualify in the office. So what I mean by that is a lead intake process, and the strategy of the company regarding running these leads. So the factors that contribute to quote percentage being low is that we don't do the work. It's not within what the company does. And we missed it during intake, during the appointment setting process. And like I said, maybe a certain amount of that is okay to make sure that we don't disqualify people that would be a good opportunity. And we make a decision. The business makes a decision based on how they want to do that. Another factor is that the closer or the salesman is not identifying the sales opportunity. And I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot with green salespeople where they don't do a good job or they miss some sales opportunities in the home. And fixing that is in training. If you end up with a salesman whose quote percentage is lower than others, it's something to dig into and find out why. And often it's just missing some opportunities that were there that he didn't see. Or maybe the closer did not build trust with the customer, so hence the customer didn't want to quote. If this happens every now and then, and if the homeowner isn't comfortable with how the appointment is going, not comfortable with the salesman, they may just say, no, just don't even bother writing me a quote. If that happens, you have a problem. And sales management needs to get involved with what's going on with that particular salesman and adjust it, or in other ways fix it, because we don't want a salesman going out and wasting our leads because he couldn't build trust with the customer, because the customer doesn't trust him. We can't have that. So another reason why is maybe the salesman just didn't write the quote, just got behind on his work, just didn't do it while he was in the home. Maybe if, or maybe we don't do them in the home and he just got behind on writing it and sending it later. So it's an admin problem for but the salesman's admin for his own personal organization problem. So the last bus stop is quoted to sold. So we've quoted it, And now it's about selling it. And this is often what salesmen will call their closing percentage. I like to think of the whole thing as being um, the entire bus route as being the overall closing percentage. But this is what the salesman will consider their closing percentage, and that's fine as long as we understand the difference here. So if you wrote 100 proposals and he closed 35% of them, then it would be a 35% closing rate or quoted to sold percentage. This number is going to vary immensely based on where your leads come from and who the payer is. If it's a homeowner pay, a self-pay, or if it's insurance pay, the type of work it is, whether it's a necessary work or a luxury work or somewhere in between. Lots and lots of factors will affect what you should expect for a closing percentage for this. But what you need to do is compare it within your company, within companies like yours, the same industry, doing similar work from similar lead sources. For lots and lots of companies, though, I would say that it ranges anywhere from 30 to 90% based on the industry, the payer, the lead source. So you need to measure this amongst yourself and talk to people close to your industry and your company to give you an idea of what you should expect for that number. So the factors that contribute to your sold percentage being low is the most common one, not asking for the sale. It's amazing the amount of salespeople that go through the entire process of asking questions and building rapport and measuring and designing and talking about the proposal, but then never get to the end, and when they get to the end, don't ask for the sale. It's amazing the amount of them who just don't ask for the sale at the end. So that's probably the biggest factor that contributes to closing percent, the percent sold being low. The other one is not being easy to buy from. And this isn't just a factor of the salesman, but it's also a factor of the company. Things like offering financing, offering ways for people to accept proposals digitally, being able to sign and pay deposits quickly with a link or in other easy ways. Making it easy for people to buy from you is a huge factor in your closing percentage. Another factor is the lack of a sales system that brings the customer along the process. And I'm talking about when we're in the home, having a process that we do, that our salesman does, that brings the customer along with us. See, there's a difference between talking with someone and talking at them, right? I think we've all had bad experiences with salesmen who speak at you and they seem to fling information at you as opposed to listen to you and talk with you so that you can understand and come along with them. And that's why I say it's having a sales appointment or a system for your sales appointments that brings the customer along with you as opposed to being like a used car salesman and being, and imposing upon them. Speaking of used car salesman, another factor that contributes to lower closing percentage is being too salesy. It's actually a lack of rapport or a lack of building trust, and it comes off as being slick and salesy. And another factor is, of course, a lack of follow-up by the salesman. But everything here that we just talked about, the reason why a closing percentage would be lower than it should be, it all comes down to a lack of training and structure for the salesman to rely on to help him close sales. So just like in the appointment center, we put two conversions together that was in their realm and we made it one KPI. And we're going to do the same thing here for the second two bus stops, which are in the sales realm. And we're going to take these two conversions and we're going to put them together and talk about them as well. So you have your quote percentage and your sold sold percentage, and these you should measure separately. You should, you should measure these separately and know what they are, but you can actually use them together as well. So you need to designate someone in charge of measuring, analyzing, and adjusting the training needed in the sales function based on these numbers. So it's whatever it looks like in your company. It's a sales manager, it's a closing coach, it's a trainer, it's whoever you want to, and it doesn't have to be their full-time job, but it's whoever is responsible for making sure this conversion is where it's supposed to be, and then reacting if it's not. Reacting in adjusting training, doing some ride-alongs, maybe reducing the amount of leads some sales reps get in order to find their sweet spot. But someone needs to work on this conversion all the time and have their pulse on it. In fact, you need to measure these particular conversions, these two numbers, based on the company as well as the individuals. So you measure as a whole as for the company, but you also measure the individual sales reps to these numbers as well. And that way you can compare. I remember we said earlier, when it comes to some of these numbers in the sales realm, it varies immensely based on industry and geography and lead source and lots of other factors. So if you're able to do the run to their numbers separately, each of your closers or salesmen, then you can start comparing them to each other as well to see who needs to get more training on different things. It's also important to have a sales system in place that provides the structure and expectations for what you want to happen during the sales appointment. See, if you're bringing salespeople in and you're handing them some brochures and some business cards and you say, go get them, Tiger. I'm sorry, that is not a sales system. You need to teach them exactly the way you want your customers treated, how you want the appointment to go, to make sure that the customer's coming along with you and that together you're building a system or proposal that they will say yes to. And make sure that you're not just providing the training on your sales system, but make sure you're providing continuous training on that sales system, because you see, training is a little bit like an oil change. You have to keep doing it, right? You don't just do it once and you're done. You need to do it periodically. You need to keep the same concepts in front of them over and over again. And also you need to train on soft skills as well. So I challenge you to start measuring these conversions, look for the unscheduled bus stops, and dig into how to increase the amount of leads that you capture and retain. Listen, if you want something to get better, focus on it. So even if this is not in your wheelhouse, assign someone in your company to track and improve these KPIs.